Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. You know, if you've been watching the news lately, it honestly just feels like a barrage of totally disconnected, chaotic events, right? But today, we're going to cut through that noise. We're going to take all these global shockwaves and synthesize them into a cohesive, digestible snapshot of the world right now. Basically, we're connecting the dots. Okay, let's dive into this.
So, think about this. What connects exploding drones, AI cameras, and a political civil war? I mean, taken out of context, it literally sounds like the plot of some futuristic thriller. But no, this is actually a totally accurate snapshot of our reality this very week. We're looking at a world undergoing massive, interconnected shifts, where these macro-level geopolitical earthquakes are rippling all the way down to the micro-level, like our local streets and our own wallets.
To keep us on track, here's our roadmap for the analysis today. First up, we're hitting global crises and flashpoints. Then, we'll shift gears into the democratic civil war. Third is tech, AI, and surveillance. And finally, we'll wrap up with business, markets, and justice. All right, let's get right to it.
Starting things off with Part 1, Global Crises and Flashpoints, taking us from the Black Sea all the way to the Middle East.
The pace of change on the global stage is just incredibly urgent right now. We're seeing massive geopolitical tremors completely reshaping power dynamics. A perfect case in point, a formerly prized geopolitical asset is suddenly becoming a massive vulnerability. Russian-installed authorities in Crimea just had to declare a state of emergency. And why? Because Ukraine's relentless drone strikes, we're talking sometimes over 100 of these things every single day, are enforcing a blockade that's triggering a total transport and energy collapse. When Vladimir Putin seized Crimea back in 2014, it was celebrated in Russia as the empire's absolute crown jewel. Today, Kyiv's drone campaign is severely contesting that control, turning what was a historic achievement into a real albatross, right as their vital tourism season kicks off.
And let's move over to the Middle East because we're seeing how this exact kind of warfare builds into another massive escalation. Look at this rapid tit-for-tat timeline. Between late February and June, the U.S. Navy base in Bahrain was repeatedly targeted by Iranian missiles and drones, causing some pretty extensive damage that the Pentagon actually hasn't fully acknowledged publicly yet. Then on June 25th, an Iranian drone hit a commercial cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. The very next day, the U.S. struck back at Iranian radar sites and drone storage. And, it's so important to remember the human toll amidst all of this high-level military action. One really striking anecdote from the reporting was about a 58-year-old Iranian mechanic. He actually returned to Tehran just to care for his elderly mother, only to have a bomb cave in his ceiling, leaving him injured and trying to navigate an increasingly divided nation.
But it's not just geopolitical warfare causing chaos. We're talking literal seismic shocks, too. Venezuela was just rocked by twin magnitude 7 earthquakes. Over 900 people killed. It's truly devastating. One resident in Cadia Lamar put it so powerfully, saying, "The biggest response came from the people, what we did ourselves." And that really highlights a massive contrast we're seeing. The U.S. Trump administration has committed a $150 million bet on acting President Delcy Rodriguez, hoping to showcase that her government can deliver stability. But the stark reality on the ground? It's citizens literally digging out survivors alone, because state rescue squads just simply haven't arrived in a lot of the devastated areas. So while fragile truces and governments are tested abroad, ideological battle lines are being fiercely drawn right at home.
Which brings us to Part 2, the Democratic Civil War, centrists versus the resurgent left.
Right now, we're objectively watching the rapid rise of the progressive wing. Leaders like New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed, alongside Senator Bernie Sanders, are really shaking the Democratic Party establishment to its core. Over the past week, their insurgent primary victories, especially left-wing candidates basically sweeping local congressional races in New York, are signaling a profound shift in what voters actually want, with Democratic socialists toppling some very well-funded incumbents.
The absolutely crucial point here is the sheer contrast in the policy clash itself. As an explainer, we're not picking sides, obviously, but we absolutely need to understand these fundamental differences. The insurgent progressive platform is loudly demanding policies like taxing the rich, Medicare for all, and abolishing ICE. In response, centrist and establishment Democrats are pushing back hard. They're actually signing pledges to bring what they're calling common sense and moderation back to the party, and they're explicitly emphasizing fiscal discipline and capitalism over socialism.
And man, this political shift is causing some very real-world anxiety in the financial sector. There's a quote floating around that says, "Money alone can't save candidates with a weak ground game and a muddled message." that perfectly encapsulates the shock among New York's business elites and Wall Street right now. After pouring huge financial backing into centrist campaigns that ended up losing to candidates running on anti-capitalist messages, these influential players are scrambling. They're suddenly waking up to the fact that their traditional influence is waning, which is forcing them to basically retool their entire political strategy from the ground up. Okay, so we're transitioning now from the highly visible political nets capturing voters to the completely invisible nets capturing our daily lives.
Let's move into part 3, tech, AI and surveillance, the invisible nets.
Have you noticed these Flux Safety automated license plate readers? These solar-powered, AI-enabled street cameras have spread like wildfire across the country. And get this? They're capturing a staggering 20 billion, yes, billion with a B, license plate reads every single month. That is mind-blowing. But they don't just read plates. The AI actually notes the vehicle's color, make, model, and even distinct features like a specific bumper sticker. The spread has been so rapid and so controversial that in Dayton, Ohio, citizens actually protested by tracking these cameras down and covering the lenses with garbage bags.
Unsurprisingly, this is sparking some incredibly intense, heated debates in city councils nationwide. Take the recent super explosive meeting in Troy, New York. On one side, law enforcement argues these cameras are an essential public safety tool, that they reduce crime, solve homicides, and recover stolen cars. But on the flip side, privacy advocates argue this constitutes illegal mass surveillance and warrantless searches. Some residents are outright calling it a dystopian hellscape. It's this fascinating, deeply polarizing clash over community safety versus data privacy.
And you know, this surveillance and tech debate extends way beyond physical cameras on our streets. It goes straight into the virtual brains of artificial intelligence. Recently, the US government took an unprecedented step in banning foreign use of 2 highly powerful AI models from the company Anthropic over major security concerns. But, plot twist, the Trump administration is now actually rolling back part of that ban. They're granting access to Anthropic's Mythos 5 model specifically for what they call trusted partners. It's a bit of an olive branch to the AI industry, though it's really important to note that Anthropic's even more capable general-purpose model, Fable 5, remains strictly banned.
Okay, let's head into our final section, Part 4, Business, Markets, and Justice, Corporate Power Shifts.
Zooming all the way into the micro level to look at some really stark financial realities, consider these 2 numbers, $900,000 versus $166,000. That lands a pretty heavy punch when you know the context. So viral social media videos featuring young creators have been deceptively touting nearly $900,000 in quote-unquote free money winnings on the prediction market platform Polymarket. But a journalistic deep dive just revealed that these were completely staged trades on fake websites. If the bets were real, those users would have actually lost over $166,000. Because of this absolute Wild West situation, bipartisan lawmakers are now aggressively calling for a federal investigation into these deceptive marketing practices that are blatantly targeting young people.
Now, let's look at another staggering number, and this one's directly impacting millions of Americans. 19.2 million. That's the estimated number of enrollees remaining in Affordable Care Act health plans as of February. And yeah, while 19.2 million sounds high, it actually represents a massive drop-off. Nearly 4 million people were forced to drop their health coverage this year. The reason? Government subsidies ended, which resulted in sharply higher premium costs for policyholders. In some cases, premiums jumped by 100% or more. Just incredible.
Finally, let's step inside the boardroom of the nation's biggest bank to look at a rapidly shifting landscape in corporate diversity. Back in the 2019 succession race to replace JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, Marianne Lake and Jennifer Pipsack were elevated to top consumer roles. This placed 2 highly capable women as the clear frontrunners. It was viewed as this really potent, realistic moment for a woman to finally ascend to the very top of Wall Street. But fast forward to today, and that dynamic has entirely faded. Pipsack withdrew from contention last year, and Lake just recently announced her retirement. So now Troy Warnbaugh and Doug Petno have been promoted to co-presidents, putting them clearly in the pole position for the top job.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground today. From drone strikes in the Black Sea and political civil wars, to the invisible nets of AI and the boardrooms of Wall Street. So here's my final thought for you. As these massive global crises ripple all the way down to our local streets and corporate boardrooms, are we merely observers, or can we actively navigate this world in transition? Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive. The world is moving fast, for sure, but by structuring the noise, we really can understand the interconnected forces shaping our reality. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.